It was a quiet Tuesday morning at Redwood Air Force Base, tucked in the heart of Kansas. The routine buzz of training drills echoed across the field. Pilots jogged across the tarmac. Engineers inspected jets, and commanding officers reviewed their schedules. Nothing seemed unusual until the unthinkable happened. A white jet, not scheduled for landing, descended silently and swiftly. Ground control scrambled, radios crackled, and officers rushed to the runway. The aircraft bore the unmistakable seal, President of the United States. "Is this a drill?" someone asked. It wasn't. Within minutes, a motorcade rolled up, and out stepped President Donald J. Trump, unannounced, unguarded, and clearly on a mission. No cameras, no press. Just the former commander-in-chief with a focused, unreadable gaze. The base. Commander Colonel Reyes approached nervously. "Sir, we weren't expecting." "I know," Trump interrupted, scanning the base. "That's the point." Everyone was stunned. Whispers filled the air. Why was he here? What was he looking for? What no one knew was that earlier that morning, Trump had received a mysterious handwritten letter with no return address, only a single line: "Come to Redwood. You'll see what truly matters." He hadn't waited for confirmation or security briefing. Something about the note felt personal. Just hours earlier, in his New York office, Trump had been reviewing briefing materials for an upcoming economic summit when his aide, Marcus, walked in holding an envelope. "No sender, sir. Just your name and handwriting," he said. It came through internal channels. Trump raised an eyebrow, curious. He opened the envelope and read the message. "You've met presidents, generals, and billionaires. But if you want to meet a real hero, come to Redwood Air Force Base. No press, no limos. Just you." Now walking deeper into the base one. Thing was clear. Trump wasn't there to give a speech or inspect weapons. He was searching for something, or someone. Signed simply, "A Soldier's Daughter." The letter held Trump's attention for several long moments. There was something about its tone, no political agenda, no flattery, just sincerity and a quiet challenge. It stirred something in him. Leaning back in his chair, he spoke with finality. "Cancel everything today," he told Marcus. "Book me a flight quietly. We're going to Redwood." Within hours, Trump was airborne. No press release, no grand motorcade, just one security vehicle and his personal driver. It had been years since he'd acted on pure instinct like this. Now walking across the base with the letter tucked safely in his coat pocket, he knew this wasn't a prank. A young airman opened a side gate, his eyes wide. "Welcome, Mr. President." Trump nodded. "Lead me to your commanding officer." As they moved across the dusty grounds, Trump noticed something different about Redwood: less ceremony, more grit. This wasn't a show base. It was a place of real work, real sweat. His eyes scanned the trainees. His instincts told him he was in the right place. But who had written the letter? And what did they want him to see? Inside the command center, Colonel Diana Reyes, a decorated, no-nonsense leader with 3 tours and 2 Bronze Stars under her belt, stood tall, though clearly rattled by the unannounced visit. "Sir, I need to apologize for the chaos," she began. "We had no prior." "I don't want an apology, Colonel," Trump interrupted gently. "I came here for a reason." He handed her the folded letter. She read it silently, her expression tightening as her eyes paused on the signature. "I may know who wrote this," she said carefully. "Who?" Trump asked. "Private First Class Riley Thomason. One of our youngest recruits. She just completed her 2nd month of active training. She's not the kind of soldier who seeks attention." Trump nodded. "Then she's exactly the kind I want to meet." Colonel Reyes hesitated. "Sir, Riley is special. But she's also been through a lot." "She doesn't even know you're here," Colonel Reyes said. Trump smiled faintly. "All the better." With a quiet sigh, Reyes picked up the radio. "Get me Riley Thomason, training yard. Now." As an aide left to deliver the order, Trump sat silently in the command room, his gaze distant. Reyes watched him closely. He didn't seem like the larger-than-life figure from rallies or headlines, but more like a grandfather searching for something lost. "What brought you here, really?" she asked quietly. Trump didn't hesitate. Sometimes one honest voice cuts through all the noise. That letter felt real. Neither of them knew what was coming, or how deeply it would change them both. Out in the training yard, Private First Class Riley Thomason was inspecting her gear when the message came. "The colonel wants to see you, now." Her heart skipped. Straightening with a sharp salute, she answered, "Yes, sir," unaware of what awaited her inside. As she stepped into the command center, her boots echoed softly on the polished floor. "Private Thomason, reporting as ordered, ma'am," she said. Reyes simply nodded and motioned to the side. Riley turned, froze. Sitting calmly, hands folded, was Donald J. Trump. Her eyes widened, breath catching in her throat. Trump stood slowly. "You wrote me a letter." Riley blinked. "You actually came?" He nodded. "Your words meant more than you know." Reyes quietly stepped out, leaving them alone. Trump gestured to a chair. "Sit with me, Riley." She hesitated, then obeyed, her hands trembling slightly. "I didn't expect anyone to actually read it," she admitted. Trump leaned forward, voice low and sincere. "You asked me to see what truly matters, so show me. Tell me your story." For the first time, Riley looked into his eyes not as a president, but as a man, and began. "My father was Captain Eli Thomason. He flew C-130s," Riley began, her voice steady but soft. "Everyone loved him, not because he was loud or flashy, but because he always put others first." Trump sat quietly, listening intently. In 2016, his plane was hit during an evacuation mission overseas. He had a chance to eject, but he stayed to guide the aircraft away from a civilian village. He died saving 47 people. She paused, her eyes misting. "They called it a technical failure. It barely made the news." Trump's jaw tightened. "That's unacceptable." Riley shook her head. "He didn't care about fame, but I did. I was 12. I wanted the world to remember him." Trump looked at her, visibly moved. "And so you joined the Air Force?" She nodded. "To earn his legacy, not for medals, just to live how he lived." A heavy silence filled the room until Trump said softly, "You've already honored him more than you know." Riley blinked back tears. She had never imagined her words would reach this far, or that someone like Donald Trump would come because of them. But this was only the beginning. After their talk, Trump asked to see more of the base, not as a dignitary, but as a guest. Riley offered to guide him. They walked together to the dining hall, where the sound of trays and casual conversation filled the air. Soldiers looked up in stunned silence as Trump entered. He waved off formalities. "No need to stand, sit, eat." He picked up a tray and accepted the same lunch as everyone else: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and overcooked green beans. Sitting among young airmen, he asked real questions. "What brought you here? What keeps you going?" One replied, "My mom was a nurse. She saved 3 kids in a school shooting. I wanted to serve like that." Another added, "I lost my dad in Iraq. I promised I'd follow his boots." Riley watched as Trump nodded to each story, not with fanfare, but genuine respect. This wasn't a photo op. There were no cameras, just connection. As they finished eating, Trump turned to Riley and said quietly, "I thought I came here to see a soldier, but I'm seeing a family." And he meant it. That evening, back in Colonel Reyes's office, Trump sat down slowly and said, "I owe you an apology. I thought this was going to be a political visit, a distraction," Reyes said, her voice calm but candid. Trump gave a faint smile. "I thought it would be too." She leaned back slightly, studying him. "You surprised me." He glanced around the room at the framed photos lining her walls, images of fallen soldiers, past ceremonies, and proud base milestones. "You've built something here," he said quietly. "Not just a base but a heart." Reyes's expression softened. "After I lost my husband also, Air Force, I made a vow. If I couldn't save him, I'd build a home where others could thrive." Trump looked at her differently, now not as a commanding officer, but as a widow who had turned grief into legacy. "You've done more than build a base, Colonel," he said. "You've built hope." The room grew still, no politics. Just shared purpose. Later, Riley led Trump to the old aircraft hangar, long retired and filled with dusty tools, spare parts, and forgotten relics. "This was my dad's favorite place," she whispered. "He used to sneak me in after hours. We'd sit inside an old cargo plane and look at the stars." Trump followed her inside. In the corner sat an old bench seat from a C-130. Riley ran her fingers along its worn fabric. "He used to tell me, Riley, being a hero doesn't mean medals. It means making hard choices." Trump quietly took a seat beside her. "Is that what your letter did?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Then maybe he's still flying somewhere." They sat together in silence, lit softly from above, surrounded by the bones of machines that once flew with pride. Then Trump asked, "Why write to me?" Riley looked up, her voice steady. "Because you have the power to remind people of what we forget, that behind every title is a person. Behind every uniform is a story." He looked into her eyes, glassy with meaning, and he understood. The next morning, Trump made a quiet request to Colonel Reyes. "Let's do something small, private, for Riley's father." She nodded. And that afternoon, soldiers gathered in the hangar. No podium, no press, just people. Trump stood beside Riley and Reyes, shoulder to shoulder, with respect, not spectacle. He held a folded flag in both hands. "This isn't about politics," Trump said, his voice steady. "This is about a man who gave his life to save others, and a daughter who carries that legacy with grace and humility." Gently, he handed the flag to Riley. Her hands trembled as she accepted it. "For Captain Eli Thomason," Trump declared, "whose name may not be in headlines, but who lives in hearts." Tears streamed down Riley's face. The soldiers around her stood tall in silent salute, and the hangar, once dusty and forgotten, became sacred ground. Word spread quickly across the base. "Trump came here for a private. He ate our food. He cried during the flag handoff." The buzz wasn't about fame, it was about pride. Soldiers began to open up. Letters were shared. Old wounds were revisited. Officers found quiet corners to reflect. Colonel Reyes called it the ripple effect, as if Trump's presence peeled back the formality and revealed something raw and real beneath. He didn't bring cameras, he brought empathy. And for many on that base, it reminded them why they chose to serve in the first place. For Riley, it meant something deeper. Her father was finally remembered, but the story wasn't over. That evening, in a quiet guest room on base, Trump sat alone, rereading Riley's original letter written in careful lines, ink smudged in places. "Dear Mr. Trump, I don't want fame. I don't want a medal. I just want you to know that heroes still live quietly on your soil. My father died saving strangers. No one ever told his story. I'm not angry. I'm just asking, will someone ever care enough to listen?" He folded the letter with care, placing it inside his inner coat pocket. Then he made a quiet call. "I need something arranged for this base, these soldiers, and for a man named Eli Thomason. No cameras, no headlines. Just legacy." Within a week, quiet deliveries began arriving at Redwood Air Force Base. New gym equipment, refurbished barracks, state-of-the-art command software, and upgraded aircraft safety kits. None bore logos, no donors were named. Each simply arrived, with a note that read, "In honor of the unheard voices of friend." That's all the note said, and yet when Riley read it, she smiled. She didn't need to know who sent it. She already did. Colonel Reyes called it the quiet rebuild. Morale lifted. Soldiers walked taller. Even old veterans who rarely smiled now grinned at morning drills. Trump never took credit. He didn't have to. He had already been changed. Before he left, Riley had one final place to show him, a tiny locked room in the admin wing. Inside was a plain box, weathered and heavy. She opened it. Letters, dozens, hundreds. Soldiers wrote these, she explained. After deployments. After funerals, some never got mailed. Trump picked one up and began to read aloud. I don't know who to send this to. But I need someone to know I tried. I did my best. I'm sorry if it wasn't enough. His voice cracked. His hands trembled slightly. These are stories, he said, buried. Riley nodded. No one ever reads them, but I do. Trump looked around the room, shaken. This shouldn't stay hidden, he whispered. That's why I wrote to you, she said. And now he truly understood. That night, under a sky full of stars beside the old hangar, Trump stood next to Riley in silence before saying, I want to do something. Not for cameras, for truth. She looked at him, like what? I want to build something here, he said. A center. A living memorial. A space where soldiers can share their stories of pain, courage, loss, and healing. No filters. No shame. Riley's eyes lit up. You mean a voice for the voiceless? He nodded. And we'll name it after your father. Riley covered her mouth, overcome. Tears streamed down not for politics, but because someone finally cared enough to remember. Later, Colonel Reyes gathered the troops. As your commander, I've seen bravery in war, but this moment is something else. We're not just soldiers. We're storytellers of the human spirit. She turned to Riley. This young woman reminded the world what we fight for, not flags, not fame, but each other. Cheers erupted. Riley blushed. And then Reyes added, thanks to a visit none of us expected, we're becoming something. More than a base. We're becoming a symbol. The room filled with thunderous applause. History, it turned out, wasn't just made with weapons, but with words. A month later, as the story continued to spread, a reporter arrived at Redwood and approached Riley. Everyone's talking about the base, she said with a smile. Can we get your story? Riley hesitated. Trump had asked her first to share her story, but she declined. I didn't do this for attention, she had said. But now the reporter stood in front of her, gently insisting, people need to hear it from you. Riley thought of her father, the letters, the memorial center rising from the ground. Finally she nodded but made one simple request. No lights. No makeup. Just let me speak as a daughter. The interview aired online with a quiet title. The Soldier's Daughter Who Wrote a Letter. It went viral overnight. Riley's words touched millions. Veterans wrote in, your story reminded me why I served. I've carried guilt for years. Your words gave me peace. My daughter watched your story and said, I want to be like her. Church groups, school children, and even members of Congress reached out to the base, asking how they could support the new memorial center. But through it all, Riley stayed grounded. She still polished her boots, still ran drills, and still visited the old hangar every night. When someone asked if she felt like a hero, she smiled gently and said, I'm just a girl who missed her dad. And somehow that quiet honesty touched people even more. 3 months later, Trump returned quietly again. This time, he brought someone with him, an elderly woman in a navy blue dress, silver hair pinned back neatly, and hands that trembled just slightly with age. Riley froze. It was her grandmother. Trump had found her in Tennessee, living alone and still grieving. She wrote me too, Trump explained softly, years ago. I figured maybe you both deserved a reunion. The two women embraced tightly. It had been 6 years since they'd last seen each other. Riley wept in her grandmother's arms. And nearby, Trump wiped away a tear of his own. Sometimes, the greatest victories come not from power but from presence. The Thomason Center for Military Voices opened on a crisp fall morning. Its halls filled not with fanfare, but with quiet purpose. Inside were reflection rooms, recording booths, therapy spaces, and a hall of letters where soldiers could read, write, and share without fear or judgment. Trump cut the ribbon flanked by Riley and Colonel Reyes. He didn't give a long speech, just 5 words. This belongs to all of you. That day hundreds walked through the center. Some wept. Some laughed. Some simply sat in silence. Their hearts understood at last. At the heart of it all stood a letter, displayed behind glass. Dear Mr. Trump, will someone ever care enough to listen? Below it, a small plaque read, Someone did. As Trump prepared to leave the base, he paused beside Riley. You changed me, he said quietly. Riley smiled, saluted, and replied, You listened. He returned the salute. As the engines of his jet roared to life, Riley stood beside Reyes, watching the aircraft disappear into the blue Kansas sky. And deep down, she knew something had shifted. Not just for her, but for every soldier who had ever felt forgotten. Her letter was never meant to seek fame. It had been a quiet beacon, a question born from pain and hope. And because one man chose to answer it, unannounced and unguarded, everything changed.